Hey guys, welcome back to the Always in Season podcast, episode number 17. A football game was played last night, but before we jump into all of that in our regular podcast stuff, we're going to first break down the weekly news.
Yeah, there's a bunch to go over. So first, I'm not sure how much we haven't talked about too much, but there was a whole thing with Sunday ticket, with the
Yeah.
NFL and charging each team and charging the viewers and all that. Yesterday was announced that a federal judge has overturned a jury's 4.7 billion verdict in the class action lawsuit filed by Sunday ticket subscribers against the NFL and has granted judgment to the NFL. Break it down for us,
I'm
Zach.
not really too surprised. Basically, this means that the NFL teams will not have to pay. I believe it was about 450 million per team. This is now not the case. I'm not going to say what I believe that the judge got paid off, but that's probably what happened. But again, it's all settled now, and we will now move on.
Yeah. So we unfortunately have had some injuries throughout training camp already. First one we'll talk about is DeAndre Hopkins, Titans wide receiver. He suffered a knee injury during practice and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. That could mean his jeopardy for week one
Yeah.
of the season. Obviously, we'll see how he progresses, but it just sucks to see injuries
Yeah.
happen.
It's really unfortunate too. Will Levis, a young guy that kind of needs a veteran receiver to kind of lean on, and now he doesn't have that with D Hop. I mean, D Hop's a little bit older, but still a big blow for them in what hopefully is a positive year for them.
Yeah, and I mean, developing that chemistry is huge during training camp, like you said, especially for a young quarterback. But D Hop's a veteran, and
Hmm.
so hopefully when he comes back, he's just kind of
Hmm.
right with it. But running back Tariq Cohen has informed the Jets that he's retiring from the NFL. We've also had a few retirements
Yeah,
in the last couple of weeks, and yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised, but also it's like he's still pretty young.
yeah. I think he's like 29. I don't think he's 30 yet, but again, you see it more and more that players are retiring young. They're prioritizing their health, which is good,
Families.
and props to him on a short but great career.
Yeah. So the Packers released some all white. They have the all white uniforms, and they have now these new all white helmets. I actually work at the pro shop, and they like had the whole like
Hmm.
announcement up set up. It was really cool, like the unboxing of the
Yeah,
helmets we got to do. And if you look close at the helmets, there's like kind of like green sparkles, you could even
yeah.
call them. Just like speckles throughout. Like the detail they put into those helmets are pretty cool. They'll be wearing those in their Week 7 game against the Houston Texans at Lambeau, and they're asking all of their fans to wear white. They're
Yep.
calling it the Winter Warning Game.
Yeah, they did release some like new merchandise for players and fans to wear, and I believe they'll also be giving away scarves at the game. But I know fans have been calling for an all white uniform. They've had the white uniforms, but now they have the white helmets. Definitely some mixed opinions I've seen on social media, but overall I think it's a positive reaction.
Yeah, all the players like it, and that's
Yeah,
most important. I'm excited to see like Matt LaFleur, for example, on the sidelines. He
yeah,
could have like an
oh,
all white fit,
yeah,
like because he likes him and like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. Some of these younger
yeah,
coaches like looking nice on the sideline. I wonder what he's
yeah.
going to come out with. Here's another injury. This one was pretty serious. Browns Deontay Foreman, he was placed in an ambulance after getting injured in a punt team drill. There wasn't video footage or too much other detail than that. We still haven't heard an update, but I mean, ambulance going to the hospital, that's pretty serious.
Yeah. Unfortunate that right away training camp starts and there's injuries. It's
Yeah.
the reality of football. You will get injured, but to be carted away in an ambulance is kind of tough. Hopefully, again, nothing too serious, and that he can be back in time for the start of the season.
Yeah, for sure. We've also had some players who've come off of injury from last season who are being removed from the PUP list. So one of those is Cowboys star quarterback Trevon Diggs. He was recovering from a torn ACL, so it looks like he will be healthy and ready to go fully for the season. So that's a huge step for them. I know he caused a lot of turnovers,
Yeah,
and he's just a very aggressive young player. So that'll really
yeah,
help their defense.
yeah. They definitely did miss him last year. I mean, obviously Micah is like their anchor on defense, but having Diggs in the secondary helps a lot. I believe he led the league in interceptions and pick sixes last or the year prior because he was out all of last year. But hopefully he can have a bounce back year, and maybe the Cowboys can do something this year. We'll see.
In the regular season.
Yeah,
Texas defensive end Nico Autry, he's been suspended for 6 games. He violated the NFL's policy against performing enhancing substances. Um, just another thing that we've talked about so many times on this podcast where it's like, why are we making these decisions? You had the opportunity to go play. It just feels like you're really
Self-sabotage.
yeah. But I mean, I'm all for the suspensions. I think that's so much better than fines. These players have money. The fines don't really do much for them. So I'm all for the suspensions as a punishment, and hopefully when he comes back, he's ready to go and not use those.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of a scare. Saints quarterback Jake Hayner, he has been diagnosed with a rare form of skin cancer. It doesn't appear to be life-threatening right now, but they're trying to work through, with the doctors on treatment. That's crazy. Like, you don't hear a lot of current NFL players with cancer. So.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I'm sure the Saints will take care of him and he'll take all the time he needs. But again, he's a backup. And not to say, obviously, like, he's important, obviously, but it's like prioritizing his health right now is the most important thing.
So. 100%. Another injury. Lions kicker Michael Bagley suffered a significant injury in practice, and he is out for the season. And kickers, like, they're not the flashy players, but they're important, and he was consistent for them. So that just is rough.
Yeah. I think it was a hamstring injury. But yeah, like you said, kickers are important. It's hard to find a consistent kicker, but when you do, it's crucial. And then now they have to start this whole search of a new kicker, and you've already been 2 weeks or so into training camp, and he was the established starter. Now you gotta go find someone to replace him.
Yeah, and I mean some of these teams like they'll bring in competition, but usually when you have your established kicker, the competition you're bringing in is really just we don't want our starter taking all the reps in training camp. We don't want him to tire out his legs, so they're just there's like a placeholder basically. Right. So yeah, now the Lions are in for a new kicker this season. Quarterback Kirk Cousins has been medically cleared from his torn Achilles, so he will not start camp on the PUP list, or he hasn't started camp on the PUP list. And all the Falcons players are loving Kirk Cousins. Like, they just think his leadership is so great. Comes in, works hard, just fully embracing this new team, and so I'm excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, there was obviously no decision, or not really any competition. I guess he was going to be the starter. We knew this. But coming off a torn Achilles, he is a little bit older. So hopefully he can have that year that they all expect from him. And like you said, the leadership has been shown right away, even though he hasn't been cleared until now. But he will start week 1, and hopefully they can make some noise in their division.
Yeah. Last injury to talk about, Justin Herbert. He had a foot injury. He's expected to be ready for week 1, but it's never good when you're young. When your quarterback, your star quarterback, is missing time. And then also injured already before the season. Like, that's just the chemistry building, like all of that. And it's a new team with a new head coach, new systems to go over. So that's really not great, but hopefully he is ready and fully healthy by week 1.
Yeah, like you said, it's very, I think, underestimated about, like, how important that timing is, the chemistry. Everybody, like, obviously wants their starter out there, but just to have that chemistry, the timing, it's all important. So losing any kind of reps with your first team players is crucial, let alone your quarterback.
Yeah. Last but not least, we finally had football yesterday. So yesterday was the Hall of Fame game. It is preseason, but if you're a football fan, it just feels like we're there, It was the Texans versus the Bears. Starters were not playing, like Caleb Williams was not playing, CJ Stroud was not playing, the star receivers, all that. They're all on the sidelines. But it was fun to see the backups. It's fun to see just football again. It looked like the Texans kind of had control first quarter. Second quarter, Bears started coming back. And then at halftime, it kind of started raining. And third quarter, it really started a downpour. The Bears then took the lead. And then they're showing us the weather, like Joe Buck's going over it. And it was like, oh, this is looking scary. This is like, here's the blue dot, and here's where the dangerous weather is. And it's coming towards us. Then a few plays later, everyone had to seek shelter, the fans, the players, all of that. It was 21-17, Bears to the lead with like 3:31 left in the third quarter. And then we waited like 25, 35 minutes, and then they were like, yeah, this game is done. We have to end it because of the weather, and obviously that's more important. Like, the safety's more important, especially with the preseason game. But what a way to kick off the season.
Yeah. Again, like you said, football's back, kind of, but we played half a game, or almost a full game.
Yeah.
But it's officially, like, again, it's just preseason, but these guys are still, pretty much all these guys are competing for a roster spot.
Yeah.
So that definitely adds another element to it. But like you said, unfortunate the game didn't finish, but of course the Bears had to win because of inclement weather. That's how the game had to end.
Yeah.
But
We had some fun highlights though, like some great throws by
yeah.
some backups. We had some like Case Keenum
Mm-hmm.
did well. Cam Akers did well. He just signed with the
Yeah.
Texans. Brett for the Bears, like he was slinging that
Mm-hmm.
thing. I mean he had like more touchdowns than he did starting in games.
Yeah.
Like he went crazy yesterday. Colin Johnston, he was
Mm-hmm.
just highlights. We also had some players who struggled. I'm not gonna put any names out there because it just one preseason game,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be surprised if they were cut
Yeah.
because they were fumbling it. They were dropping
Yeah.
passes right to them. So,
Right.
yeah, but it was still fun. Again, football's back and we're excited. Do you have anything else to say on the preseason
I
game?
don't think so.
No. So there have been some Madden ratings coming out and the NFL Top 100, but they're not all fully released yet. So we will talk about those in the next podcast. There's been a lot of contracts though.
Yep.
This past week, and they're big ones, and so we're gonna dedicate the whole next segment to contracts. So we'll get into that next.
All right, now we're going to talk about all the contracts that happened over the past 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, so first off, we're both really happy this man got paid. Buccaneers offensive tackle, Pro Bowl offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs finally reached an agreement on a 5-year, $140.63 million contract extension. He's now the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history. He was in the final year of a contract, which was scheduled to pay him $18.24 million this year. He is now going to be there through 2029.
Yeah, it's very hard to find star O tackles, and when you do, you need to hold on to them. And I aside from Trent Williams, I mean Tristan Wirfs is the best tackle in football. So he got paid like he deserved to get paid, and yeah, I mean, like you said, it was a long time coming, but again, he got paid, and hopefully he will continue to grow.
And not just finding star tackles, but star tackles who stay healthy.
Right,
Because there's
yeah.
a few around the league who are great, but they're
yeah,
injured all the
that's
time.
True.
So quarterback Matthew Stafford, this was like, I don't know. It's not like a big contract or anything, but they revised it, and
Yeah.
it's really helpful for their team and the cap. $12.5 million signing bonus, $23.5 million guaranteed. It's effectively a 1-year, $40 million deal. He did give up his other guarantees, but translation, he plays the season, and then all sides will reassess after the season.
Yeah, I mean Stafford is kind of getting to that age where it's like, how many more years does he have left? I think if they kind of have a mediocre season this year, they will move on. But like you said, it's a very team friendly deal. It's one where both sides I think can be happy. I Stafford has nothing yet to prove. He has a Super Bowl now. He's definitely made his fair share of money. He's established as one of the better quarterbacks, at least in recent years. So I think, barring anything drastic, I think this is probably his last year in the NFL.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he got his Super Bowl, a couple of years ago, and I think the Rams are, they have some old, they have some young, but they're really becoming more of the young team. They're kind of trying to start fresh, and so Stafford's a great leader, but like you said, he has a family, he has a lot of kids,
Yeah.
and he's a family guy. He's had a great career. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last season either. DJ Moore and the Bears reached agreement on a 4-year, $110 million extension that includes $82.6 million guaranteed. Yeah, Moore has now had his first 10 years of his career guaranteed, a first in NFL history for a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean the Bears made the move for him 2 years ago, and he did well last year. He had his by far his best year. The Bears definitely made a lot of acquisitions this offseason with Keenan Allen, and then they drafted Odunze. But locking up DJ Moore, it's important for them. But again, you have guys that I think will have to get paid as well. I think this is a solid deal for both sides. I mean, receivers have to get paid, and it's not. I mean, it's big money, but it's not like 140, which is what Jefferson got. But again, I think something that needed to happen, and locking down one of their, at least someone that they know is going to consistently make an impact, or that they hope.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a good deal. I'm not surprised by the deal. It is a lot of money, but that's just kind of how things are going now. Last week we said that we would not record another podcast until Jordan Love got signed, and that is true. Packers quarterback Jordan Love agreed to a 4-year extension worth $220 million. He is now the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. And a lot of people, some people are thrilled by it, or like, wow, he was fantastic, especially the second half of the season, best quarterback in the league, he's up and coming, all that. Then there was the other side where it was like, he's only played one season, and only half the season looked like really good. The other half was up and down. Why are you giving him so much money? Blah, blah, blah. But if you look at the details, Brian Gutekunst, Packers general manager, he crushed this contract. He with the signing bonuses, because there's a whole breakdown. We were talking about it last night that there's the cap, and the cap, this is the biggest increase of cap from last year to this year for the NFL. And also, if you look at the Packers team, they're so young, they're not going to have to dish out a big contract again for another couple of years. Mm-hmm. They probably have 2 more years till they have to dish out a big contract. Also, it's pretty top-heavy for this Jordan Love contract. But there's obviously the money that spreads throughout the years so that they're not using over the cap for this year. It spreads throughout the years of the contract of the 4 years. So that's kind of how it works. But what do you think about the Jordan Love deal?
Like you said, Goot, he definitely he said that this was going to take time. It was a big deal. It was a $75 million signing bonus, which is the largest in NFL history. So, like you said, it's front loaded. It's set up nicely. But I think both Goot and LaFleur said in a couple years it could hurt them. But this is a situation where it's not going to hurt them unless they were to decide to trade or move on. But again, this is not something that they are expecting at all. Love is the unquestioned leader in the locker room. He has shown that leadership ever since last year. I mean, even both his players, or his teammates and other players have just raved about him. I mean, if you go look at his segment in the top 100, TJ Edwards just could not believe the growth that he experienced from the first time they played him to the last. You've seen flashes and people say, he only played 10 games. But those 10 games, he was the best quarterback in football. And it was 23-1 interception ratio. The last couple weeks of the season, went into Jerry's world and just absolutely torched the Dallas defense that seemed like nobody could figure them out. And then obviously you ran into the 49ers. But you like to see the promise. You know you have something, and it seems to be that the Packers figured it out again.
And I think a big reason, because you said he showed leadership starting last year, I would even argue that he showed it before that. If you look at everything he went through how the media were attacking him. Fans were attacking him he's a bust. Why'd the Packers draft him? Don't you want to start? Rodgers is starting. What are you going to do? Are you ever going to get to play? All of this garbage that he had to deal with. And then even when Rodgers was the Packers quarterback, he wasn't there for, the OTAs. So Jordan was the starter in OTAs. And it was how does it feel to be the starter, but you're not going to be the starter for the season? Dealing with all those questions. And he never put down the Packers, never put down Rodgers, always showing that leadership, always showing that consistency, even when he wasn't the official leader of the locker room. And that's something that Matt LaFleur talked about in his interview after the contract was done, that Jordan Love, he's not going to change now that he got the big money, that he's just consistent. All the players were happy for him too.
Yeah, but I just think that the Packers have always done a phenomenal job with keeping everything internal. They don't let the outside media affect them. They know what they have. They knew what they had from day one. I believe Jordan himself has said that if he would have started as a rookie, I don't think, he said he doesn't know what would have happened. He doesn't believe that he would be the player that he was. The Packers they have been criticized for why do you draft a guy, sit him for 3 years, and then throw him out there for a year? It works. It worked last year.
Do it.
So some rookies like CJ Stroud can excel immediately, but it doesn't happen often. So props to the Packers for putting a team around him, and now you have young guys, second-year guys, third-year guys, even some rookies that will make an impact. Josh Jacobs that they just signed. They always draft well. They're one of the teams that consistently finds studs in the draft, and Jordan Love will be there for the next 4 years, and I'm sure many more. But their Super Bowl window, it was open last year, and it has now just expanded for at least the next 4 years.
5 hours before Jordan Love signed his
Yeah.
contract, Tua was the highest paid quarterback. He and the Dolphins agreed to a 4-year, $212.4 million extension. This is another example of a team that, the coach and the quarterback have a great chemistry. Mike McDaniels, I mean, he raves about Tua from the minute he came into that building. Much confidence in him. Their offense, I mean, it was electric last season. They have some great weapons around Tua, and Tua stayed healthy. And, I mean, a lot of people hate on Tua. The thing is, I mean, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and the AFC is tough. They're in a tough division, but they could really make something for themselves, and good for Tua getting his money. Now, the difference between, like, Tua versus, Trevor Lawrence or Jordan Love, these Joe Burrow, these other guys from the same draft that have gotten paid, is he has not won a playoff game. So some people are a little, like, iffy about that. Like, oh, is he worth it? But like we've talked about, this is the market we're in now for quarterbacks. And when you have a quarterback that is showing that talent, it's no longer about paying for them for what they did. Now it's really about paying them for what they believe they're going to do. And now it's just time for Tua to prove it. But that's where the like incentive-based contracts are really helpful, as well as the top-heavy, where as they get older, we can kind of be like, okay, we're paying them less in case they drop off. So, but good for Tua.
Yeah, I think Tua, I mean, he's shown that, like, obviously you have guys like Waddle and Tyreek Hill that are important in that offense, but having a mobile quarterback like Tua that knows McDaniel's offense, that can run it for the next couple of years, is important. He got, like you said, the big thing is that quarterbacks, it's so hard to find them. It's so hard. So when you even think you have a glimpse of something there, you have to pay them as if they're the top guy. I mean, you look now, Mahomes is the now 11th highest paid quarterback, which, is baffling because, he's won a couple Super Bowls now. But even guys like Joe Burrow, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's beaten Mahomes. Trevor Lawrence, what has he accomplished? Not a lot. But they're getting paid the same. And then Tua and now Jordan Love are right there as well. So you have to pay these guys is what you expect them to be. But of all the guys in that draft class, I don't think it's a stretch to say that when it's all said and done, there will be multiple Super Bowls within that group.
Wouldn't be surprised. The Patriots and versatile defensive back Jabril Peppers have reached an agreement on a 3-year extension worth $24 million with upside to $30 million. So New England, he's a productive player, and it's good to keep him around.
Yeah, they kind of really haven't had much luck drafting, but I mean they got Jabril, and they see promise in him and locking him down for the next couple of years. They got to find some other pieces. They got to figure out their quarterback situation, which maybe they have. But locking up one of their better defensive players is not to be overlooked. And
then the Seahawks and defensive back Julian Love agreed on a 3-year extension worth up to $36 million.
Yeah, I mean I think he signed there as a free agent, but then he got he got an extension. Sorry. But Seattle is one of those teams also that's trying to still figure it out, and just finding pieces and extending them, keeping that core there is important.
And also, we didn't include this in the weekly news, but just since we're on the Seahawks, Geno Smith, the quarterback, he's been dealing with injuries-ish. It seems like he tweaked his hip and his back, and so they're trying to figure that out. So just while we're on the topic of the Seahawks, hopefully he's okay and we'll be able to be fully healthy for the season. Now we have to talk about the Cowboys. Colin Cowherd said that the Cowboys seem to have drama every 15 minutes. And it kind of does seem that way. Now, they have CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, who they're better players on the defense and offense side of the football. They both want to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. That's never a situation you want as an owner. Now, you do want, or a GM, you do want your players to obviously be super talented, and you want to be able to pay them, but when you have a quarterback that in this market, who might have to be now the highest paid quarterback if you're going to keep him, and then you have 2 other players who want to be paid the highest paid non-quarterback, that's a lot of money that you just don't have. You can't dish all of that out unless you want to get rid of the rest of your team.
Right.
So the Cowboys have a lot going on. Jerry Jones, he is the Cowboys owner, and he is a talker. He I'm not gonna say he likes drama, but he likes attention. And
Loves attention.
Dallas, it's a flashy place, and America's team, and AT&T State, it's a big deal. It's the Dallas Cowboys, the stars. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the Cowboys are one of those cornerstone franchises in the NFL, and so Jerry, he makes sure that they are always in the conversation, even if they're
They're not.
not. They are because
Because
there's
of-
always
because
something
of
to talk
Jerry.
about because of Jerry. And there were reports that the Cowboys and wide receiver CeeDee Lamb are closing in on a 4-year deal worth around $136 million. It has not been official. That is the rumor that's out there. But ever since we heard that rumor a few days ago, we haven't heard anything since that of like, okay, this does seem to be happening. But that did get put out there. Dak was asked about if the contract situation, the situation with the Cowboys, and I think some people read it the wrong way. He said that he loves being a Cowboy and wants to stay there, but he did say that he's seen other great quarterbacks, and I don't think he was comparing himself to great quarterbacks. I think he was making the point that even the best of the best,
Have to move
Aaron
on.
Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Brett Favre, all of them moved on and played for other teams in their career. So if they even didn't get the contracts
Yeah.
always to stay with the team for their whole career, he understands that might be his reality. So Jerry Jones has this drama going on. We have a CeeDee Lamb rumor of a contract, nothing official. We don't know if they're going to pay Dak. And then Jordan Love got paid as the highest paid, who he completely outdueled Dak
Yeah.
in the playoffs in Dak's home
Yeah.
stadium. And Jerry was asked if he thinks Dak's better than Jordan Love, and he avoided the question, probably because if he says yes, he thinks
Then-
he's better, then he has to pay him.
Yep.
And if he says no, then what kind of you look like you're not supporting him. So he just completely avoided the question.
Jerry is an interesting individual, to say the least. He, like you said, he loves to bring attention, even though the Cowboys don't always need it or want it. I think that can scare away people because some guys just want to go play football and they don't love the attention, all the attention on them. Now the Cowboys are in this. You talked about it, in this unique situation where you have three guys that are. I don't think it's a debate that to say they're up there in their respective positions. In my opinion, of the three, Micah, CeeDee, and Dak, you need to prioritize Micah. Micah is a tremendous defensive player. He will, barring anything drastic, I believe he will be in the defensive player of the year conversation. It's hard for me. It's easier to find a guy like, I would say, obviously CeeDee is very good, but like it's not hard to find a receiver. Quarterbacks they're harder to find, but Dak still haven't been to an NFC Championship. So last year was their best shot in a while, and both Jerry Jones and I think a lot of players and media thought that. And when they just fizzled out and just didn't show any effort at all in the game against Green Bay, there were so many questions. And now Jerry is kind of like, I don't know about Dak. CeeDee, it's seeming like he might get paid, but then if CeeDee gets paid, I can't think Micah's going to be sitting there like and be okay with it.
Yeah, so it's a lot of drama. I don't love saying this, but there's a lot of egos
Yeah.
with those four, including Jerry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money that's desired.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different types of contracts they're trying to figure out, all different positions, and then there's the whole cap, and as well as like the market for both quarterbacks and receivers especially. And on that point, if you look at some of the off-season of wide receiver extensions, Justin Jefferson, 4-year, $140 million. DJ Moore, 4 years, $110. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 years, $120. Jalen Waddle, 3-year, $84.75. Like, those are just a few. There's also Nico Collins, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
Like, all of these contracts that are happening, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then still to come, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, all those might be coming up soon. So, it's just going to keep getting bigger, and it's like, is he worth it or not? Because I don't think CeeDee necessarily wants to sign a contract unless it's the highest paid or the second highest paid.
Yeah, it needs to be like this 136 seems to be between 130 and 140. I think it's a number. If it goes below 130, I don't think he signs.
Yeah.
But again, the Cowboys are an interesting team, and I think I'll kind of, even though the NFL Sunday ticket thing is done and over with, I just found it funny how Jerry said he didn't want to pay anybody because he was afraid he would have to fork out this 450, $500 million worth of money when he's a multi-billionaire. So like I know it's a lot of money, but to Jerry it's he has that money.
He does.
So to sit there and say like, oh, I don't want to pay him because I might have to pay this is just ridiculous.
It seems like a kind of weak excuse.
Yeah.
And then also with the quarterbacks, so this is just the 2020 draft class, but it has now produced nearly 1.25 billion in quarterback contracts. We have Joe Burrow, 5-year, 275, Tua, 4-year, 212.4, Justin Herbert, 5 years, 262.5, Jordan Love, 4-year, 220, and Jalen Hurts, 5-year, 255. So that's a lot of money. Now, Dak Prescott was the 2016 draft class, not 2020, so he's older. Where would you put him? Do you have him above Joe Burrow?
I don't. I don't have him.
Would you want him above Tua?
I don't have him. In my opinion, I don't have him in those conversations with those guys.
Any of them?
I don't think so. I think I would say 4 years, 200.
What about Justin Herbert?
What Herbert get again?
So Justin Herbert had 5-year, 262. So would you rather? Who? Okay, let's say that these guys weren't paid.
Yeah.
Who would you rather pay? Would you rather pay Justin Herbert or Dak?
Herbert. I think.
So all these quarterbacks are taking over Dak.
Yeah, because I think Dak is older. He hasn't he has not really shown anything. I mean, last year was his best year, but it's like
He's great.
He's like you said, 2016 draft class. Not to say that he's old, but he's not these guys' age.
Now what about Trevor Lawrence? Because he also is.
Yeah, Trevor's one of those guys too that it's like you have to pay him for what you kind of expect, and Trevor's younger as well. So Dak is. I would be very surprised. I don't know. I think he'll get the money, but I wouldn't pay him.
Now, here's something. Since Dak came in the league, what I've always said is that he is Kirk Cousins. And you can continue to make comparisons of Dak and Kirk Cousins. Obviously, they're not the same exact player, but they have a lot of similarities and pretty equal value, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I think, just like Kirk Cousins was one of the gems of the free agency, I think that the best thing that could happen for Dak is for him to not get paid by the Cowboys. I don't think he'll ever win with the Cowboys. Truly, you and I have talked about that. We don't think that as long as Jerry's the owner, that they're going to win a Super Bowl. That's not necessarily to say he's a bad owner, because he's great in a lot of ways. But it just seems like they need a fresh voice in there, fresh ownership or leadership. And I think the best thing that could happen is Dak going to a new team. Who knows? Obviously, we can talk maybe more after this season, if that seems to be a possibility of where a good landing spot would be for him. Mm-hmm. But I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think if he were to get out there, that would really see where his market is.
And
because
he is talented.
He is, and I think if he were to just not hold the Cowboys hostage, but to be there and sit there like, oh, I'm not gonna to hold out. I don't think he's gonna hold out. I think he would have already, but I do think, like you said, entering the free agency market would be a good thing for him. It would allow him to see really what his market is like, and just go from there. A fresh start wouldn't hurt him at all.
Yeah. So that was a lot we had to break down with the weekly news and the contracts. We wanted to make sure we touched on all of it. Now we are going to get into the breakdown of the NFC East.
All right, first up in the NFC East is the Washington Commanders. They went 4-13 last year, and they've kind of hit the reset button on all facets.
Yeah. They're 4-13. Their offensive rank was 24th. Defensive rank was dead last, and their special teams rank was 7th. So go special teams, carrying them.
Yeah, I think we talked about it earlier. I don't know how they won 4 games. They allowed 30.5 points per game, which is yikes. But the 20, like you said, 24th overall in the offense, and I mean 18th in passing, 27th in rushing, and 25th in points. So just no bright spots, but they needed to hit the reset button, and they did.
Yeah, so for their coaching changes, so Dan Quinn is now their head coach, as opposed to Ron Rivera. And they have offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury and defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr., where previously they had Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator and Jack Del Rio as their defensive coordinator.
They had a lot of additions in the free agent market. I won't go through all of them, just kind of the bigger ones. Marcus Mariota, Austin Eckler, Jamison Crowder, Zach Ertz, Tyler Biadasz, Michael Dieter, Dante Fowler, Bobby Wagner, and Michael Davis. And then as far as losses go, Jacoby Brissett, Sam Howell, Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, Cody Barton, Kendall Fuller, Cameron Curl, and Joey Sly. So they've basically overhauled their roster.
Yeah, a little bit. Their draft, they had a pretty good draft. It was pretty spread evenly throughout offense and defense, but their big one is getting quarterback Jaden Daniels, who I absolutely love. I don't know if he's gonna become All of Fame or anything of that caliber, but he's gonna create highlights and he creates excitement for the team. Maybe sell out some games. I'm very excited to see him. And Dan Quinn's a great coach, great leader of men, so I'm excited to see him as a head coach again.
Yeah, in a tough division, they're just looking to improve on their 4-1 season. Hopefully, I really do believe Jaden Daniels has a chance to be great, and they just need to start putting pieces around him and, most importantly, protect him.
Yeah. And it'll be fun seeing, Austin Eckler, because a lot of people, when they've talked about the running backs, they've talked about Derrick Henry to the Ravens. They talked about Josh Jacobs to the Packers, or Saquon to the Eagles. But they haven't really talked much about Eckler, to the Commanders. And it's because he's older. He hasn't been as great as those guys have. But just like Derrick Henry might be rejuvenated in Baltimore, who says that can't be the same? I mean, he's around a young team, young players. They got some young receivers from previous year. And then obviously Jaden Daniels. So Austin Eckler might be completely rejuvenated and go on a run here, which would be fun.
Yeah.
They have the 16th schedule difficulty. So middle of the pack. We looked at their schedule, and if they start out firing, they could start out 2-0 if they can beat the Buccaneers and then beat the Giants, a division game. But really, they don't have any tough stretches, it looks like. They just have that up and down. All right, we have, 2 kind of, winnable games, and then 2 really tough games against playoff teams, and back and forth like that.
Yeah, and that's really nice. I think you said they have their bye week in December, but it's really nice to not just really have a month where you just kind of run into these 4 playoff teams and just kind of lose motivation. But like you said, if they can win 2 easy games and maybe have a chance to beat a playoff team, it's all about just solid improvements. Their playoff chances are no,
they're low.
They're low. I don't, in that division.
You'd at least have the Eagles and Cowboys.
Yeah, Eagles and Cowboys will be there, and then the NFC definitely has some better teams than some other divisions. Like the NFC North is very good. The NFC West, the Niners will be there, but I'm sure there will be some
the Rams, maybe
Seahawks.
They're all.
So I don't see them making the playoffs, but I think the biggest thing is just finding improvement and hopefully finding their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, just kind of like we talked about with the Panthers last week, that it really isn't about, you got to go make the playoffs and win a playoff game this year. It's just about, are y'all improving? Does it look like you have hope for the future? Do we have the right coach and quarterback and core in place? But that's it for the Commanders. Next, we're going to move on to the New York Giants.
All right, next up in the NFC East is the New York Giants. They went 6-11 last year, and again, we're kind of just stumped how they won 6 games.
Yeah, so they went 6-11. Their offensive rank was 29th, defensive rank was 27th, and special teams rank was 30th. So they really did not have a bright spot.
Yeah. 31st in passing and 30th in points is kind of, really disappointing. Daniel Jones really wasn't there, but just kind of not any bright spots. And then you go and you lose Saquon. He didn't really get any better for you.
Yeah. They also have a lot of coaching changes. I won't go over all of them. Shane Bowen and Titans, Michael Gorbiel, that he was from the Titans. So those are new coordinator positions. Their big coaching loss was losing Wink Martindale at defensive coordinator. He chose to leave.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. But yeah, they have a lot of coaching changes. Like I said, maybe that'll help. But they have some work to do.
Yeah. As far as additions go in the free agency, Drew Lock, Devin Singletary, Miles Boykin, Isaiah McKenzie, Allen Robinson, John Runyon, and Brian Burns. But those were kind of mediocre additions, but as far as the losses go, they obviously lost Saquon, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Darren Waller, Jahad Ward, and then their secondary really got hit hard with Adoree Jackson, McKinney leaving, and then Randy Bullock as well.
Yeah, for their draft, their big pick was Malik Neighbors, and he looks so far in training camp to be really a shining star. Yeah. So it looks like a great pick for them, but obviously you're going to need more than that.
Yeah, somebody throwing the ball that's,
Yeah, I don't know what Daniel Jones is going to look like. The whole team, it's tough. The offensive line, obviously, there's always questions there. They did try bolstering that. Hopefully, they can get something going.
Hard Knocks is a wonderful thing.
It really
with the
is.
Giants. You learn a lot about how everything went down, especially with Saquon. It was interesting. But
Yeah. So yeah, they have a lot, and their schedule difficulty is seventh, so they don't have an easy schedule at all. And it looks like it really hits them early. In week three, starting with week three, they have the Browns, and then they have the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Bengals, the Eagles, the Steelers. So maybe the Seahawks is the easier game in that stretch, but like I mean, two division games in that stretch. The Steelers in Pittsburgh, the Browns in Cleveland. I mean,
yeah, just not like that stretch. I mean, it's a pretty early stretch too. I mean, you have a couple weeks to kind of get something going, but for a team that really doesn't really have any bright spots, just kind of a rough stretch that really is not going to help them at least look better on paper.
I think for the Giants, this year is really a figuring it out year. Is are we going to keep Brian as our head coach? Are
Yeah.
we going to keep Daniel Jones as our quarterback? Like I think those are the two biggest things that they're trying to figure out this year.
Yeah.
And or are we going to just keep one of them after the season? Are we going clean slate? Like I think they keep kind of holding on to certain players or certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I think honestly, Saquon. I know it's hard having him gone, but honestly, I think they could have been better if they got rid of him earlier and got maybe even a bigger haul for him. I don't know. I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of things that would have to go right for them, but we don't expect them necessarily. I don't think even Giants fans expect them to go and win their division or
No.
win a playoff game or be in the Super Bowl or anything like that. But seeing how their new additions have gone, see if their offensive line is better, more consistent, and staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing if their defensive additions are helping their defensive rank
Yeah.
a little bit. Seeing if Malik Neighbors really is that dude. Like all of
Yeah.
those things. And then, obviously, all right, are we sticking with Daniel Jones or are we sticking with Brian? But
Yeah, just I would argue there's more questions that need to be answered for them than Washington. I think Washington has, I'd say, like with their quarterback, it's a whole different situation. With Daniel Jones, it's like you've paid him a lot of money,
yeah.
and why you paid him, I'm not really sure why you paid him over Saquon, especially because when the whole Saquon thing happened, they were pretty close in numbers, but they decided to pay Daniel Jones, and that ultimately cost them. But yeah, if they finish last in the division, I don't think people would be shocked at all.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for the Giants. We'll move on to the Philadelphia Eagles next.
All right, next up in the NFC East is the Philadelphia Eagles. They went 11-6. They started out pretty hot, and then they kind of leveled off and fizzled out.
Yeah, 11-6, lost to the Buccaneers in the wild card round. Offensive rank was 8th, defense rank was 26th, and special teams rank was 29th. So it is funny because they were looking really great, but their defense and special teams ranks weren't honestly that good. Their new additions were coaching: Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator; Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator. Then they have a lot of new passing game coordinator, defensive backs, and like all that kind of stuff. But we won't go over all those details. Their key losses in coaching: Matt Patricia is not returning to the coaching staff, or Sean Desai. But other than that, nothing too big of change.
The big free agency signings, obviously, was Saquon and Paris Campbell came over from the Giants. C.J. Uzama, Mekhi Becton, Zach Bond, Oren Burks, Stephen White, Avonte Maddox, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And then as far as their losses go, Mariota, Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift, Julio Jones, Quez Watkins, Jason Kelsey retired, so that's really unfortunate for them. Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, Shaq Leonard, Bradley Roby, and Kevin Byard. So like the Commanders, kind of a big overhaul.
Yeah. I think the Zach Bond edition is going to be a lot bigger than people are talking about because obviously people are focused on, Saquon. But I think that's a big addition. For their draft, they got Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, both great picks. They added another running back, a Will Shipley. They honestly had a pretty solid draft, especially early on, and a lot of people thought the Cooper DeJean pick was a steal in round 2.
Yeah.
We haven't heard too much about him so far.
No, he's been pretty quiet
in the off season, but that's kind of expected at that position. When you're young, you're really just trying to learn the defense, and sometimes you're not even getting the 1 reps. You're getting the 2s and 3s, but I'll be interested to see when he does go out there, see how he performs against these guys. Obviously, he can practice against guys like, AJ Brown in practice, so that helps him iron sharpen iron. So
right. I think one of the big things that I will really hurt them is Jason Kelsey retiring. I think it's kind of like people don't understand what a center like that can do to an offense.
And especially the quarterback.
Multiple times you'll see where Jalen tries to change the protection, and Jason is like, no. Like Jason knows football. Obviously, it seemed like he should know football better than Hurts, and he did. So I know that Jason did draft his I wouldn't say draft his replacement. He had a lot of input on who was going to replace him, but it'll be interesting to see losing a center like that, what Jalen Hurts in the offense looks like.
I mean, the experience is huge, so no matter who you got to replace him, it wasn't going to be Kelsey or anything comparable. But yeah, Kelsey's a big loss, and I think, like you said, Jalen would try to change protection. Jason would be like, no, we're not doing that. Jalen has a lot of learning when it comes to the mental side of the game. Yeah. He obviously is talented. You can see clearly a lot of the mistakes that he will make is all about the knowledge of the game and not as much about, like, the talent, the physical talent. So Jason really was a good crutch for him to have.
Yes.
We'll see how Jalen goes without him now. But that's also where Nick Sirianni, like, all right, coach your boys up, or off of the court, Kellen Moore, like, coach your boys up. So they shouldn't have to deal with that. But their schedule difficulty is 22nd. Obviously, they kick off the season against the Packers in Brazil. And then Falcons, Saints, Bucks. So we get to play the South. They have an early bye week. They have a week 5 bye week. Yeah, I know you don't like that. But then it's pretty up and down, I would say, after that. They do have to play against the AFC North, which a lot of people are saying is the toughest division in football. They might all be competing for the playoff spot. Like, it's really crazy. So they end with all division games. So it's Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. Which might be the end. Like, that might be the deciding factor.
Right. I mean, and that's usually what most of the time what it comes down to is the last couple weeks of the season. Basically, like we talked about earlier, it's them and Dallas kind of at the top. What we kind of all expect, barring anything drastic. I don't know. We don't really know what the Cowboys are looking like. They didn't really make too much noise. They have a lot of questions, like we talked.
They make a lot of noise.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, you know what I mean. But like it's I don't know. I think they have a real shot at winning the division. It's just like, I mean, last year we saw they were looked really good, and then the defense the last couple weeks were like, well, why are we giving up 20 plus points a game? Couldn't really stop anything, and then obviously against Tampa they just didn't have it.
It really will be interesting. They are starting week 1, like we said, their defensive rank was not good, and right away, week 1 in Brazil, they go against the Packers, who are a young, talented offense. So it'll be a really good test right out the gate. What is this defense looking like? So obviously, it's week 1. Nobody looks their best in week 1. I feel like everyone's still starting. There's new schemes, everything, but it's also a new scheme of Packers, defense. So how is Jalen Hurts' offense without Jason Kelsey? How are they looking against a Packers defense that they are really making everything look the same? All the looks are they're not giving anything away.
Like with Happy there, it's a new defense that nobody has tape on.
And that's going to be tough for the Eagles to go against week 1. But obviously, there's a whole season. And, I mean, even if, they start with the Packers and, okay, win-loss, I don't know. But I think a lot of people will honestly be favoring the Packers in that game, especially because it might be more of a home game for them. Week 2, they play the Falcons. And, again, we don't have tape on, Kirk Cousins with them. Raheem Morris is a new coach there. It's a new scheme. And then they have the Saints, but then the Bucks. So, before the bye week, it's very possible that they could be 1-4. They are 1-3. They might just beat the Saints. I don't know. Yeah. Obviously, the Eagles are a good team. They really are. But with the changes they have, with the losses they have, and with the teams they're going against, it could be a tougher stretch than maybe it looks like record-wise. So that's it for the Philadelphia Eagles. Last but not least, we're going to move on to the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, last up in the NFC East is the Dallas Cowboys. They went 12-5 last year. They won their division, but they lost to the Packers in the playoffs.
Yeah, their offensive rank was 5th, defensive rank was 5th, and special teams rank was 21st. So, obviously, overall really good. Special teams was below average.
Yeah, they were 14th rushing offense and 16th rushing defense. But other than that, they were top 5 in every other category. So
their main coaching change was at the defensive coordinator position. It was previously Dan Quinn, who obviously is now head coach for the
Yeah.
Commanders within the division. Mike Zimmer is their new defensive coordinator, and he's a great defensive mind.
Yeah, really, free agency additions, they had three players Ezekiel Elliott, Royce Freeman, and Eric Kendricks. They were heavily criticized for really not doing anything and not spending any money. And then as far as losses go, they had a lot of losses. Tony Pollard and Michael Gallup, and then key offensive linemen like Tyron Smith, Tyler Biotish, and then guys like Dante Fowler, Neville Gallimore, Jonathan Hankins, Vander Esch retired, and then they also lost Stephon Gilmore and Jaron Curse.
Yeah, that's crazy. And their draft, it wasn't anything flashy. Like truly, it was I mean, tackle and edge. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. There's no big names.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just bolstering the roster, like we've talked about. But their schedule difficulty is 12th. When you look at their schedule, it's like up and down
Mm-hmm.
up until their bye week. Bye week is week 7. But then after the bye week is where they have that tough stretch. It's
Yeah.
the 49ers, the Falcons, the Eagles, and the Texans. Then they have up and down again after that. But that is a tough 4-game stretch where, I mean, middle of the season, maybe that's where they're hot streak, or maybe that's where they just start to plummet. I don't know. But
Yeah.
nothing easy about that.
Yeah, definitely not. But I think that's it for the Cowboys.
Yeah, so that's it for this week. Next week, we'll finish off with these division breakdowns with the NFC West.